colleagues, many keywords of this session, like novelty, breakthrough, discovery, and especially innovation, are often used, diplomatically saying, in a highly varying context. It has become even customary to tune their meaning to fit the purpose of the speaker and to support his or her view on things. Still, these words definitely are not simply buzzwords or kind of lingo. They do have clear meaning. In particular, the fundamentals of innovation can be traced back to Peter Drucker. It is an application of fundamentally new knowledge to solve new problems. Innovation is much more than simply a way of getting process smoother or production more effective. In this context, not only novelty, but essentially a breakthrough in science is a mandatory precondition of innovation, more generally, of any major transformation of society. There is clear similarity with unicorns, which are teams who drive brilliant business ideas worth of $1 billion. Such businesses do not emerge out of blue sky. They usually materialize breakthroughs in science and associated technology. A simple saying highlights this connection. Unicorns are essentially a spillover effect of excellent science. Novelty is part of the definition of science. That essentially means retrieving new and significant information. What is not new is not science, and generally cannot fuel a breakthrough or innovation. The most complicated item among these words is breakthrough. Everybody likes it. Many claim to have reached it, but a few have really done it. Not all science belongs to this category, but some does. Measuring of science is already a headache. Identification of breakthroughs is much more complicated. Paraphrasing words of George Box about models, all metrics and rankings are wrong, but some are useful. The core problem is that some aspects are simply not comparable or even measurable. This is a generic problem in social sciences in general and in science about science in particular. Remember the words of George Vaillant. Perhaps the greatest problem faced by the academic social sciences is that what is measurable is often irrelevant, and what is truly relevant often cannot be measured. The degree of usefulness of metrics strongly depends on not only how professionally different kinds of metrics and rankings are designed and evaluated. This degree even more strongly depends on the context. Many commonly used rankings and metrics are focused on measurable achievements in the classic, mostly English language, science landscape. They almost ignore science produced in other languages, be it Spanish, Chinese, or Russian today, and even larger variety of language in the past, and often together with breakthroughs described in these languages. This feature essentially is a bug. It distorts and normally diminishes both standing and perception of science performed in many places. It is one of intrinsic components of a gradient between so-called global north and global south. But if we look closer, a similar or even more contrast gradient exists in the east-west direction, clearly in the Asian continent, and somewhat sheltered, but perhaps even stronger in Europe. This is why young academies, together with Berlin-Brandenburg Academy of Sciences in Germany, have initiated so-called Reclaiming Europe initiative to make European society and science connected and great. We, I mean here so-called Western science, have overlooked this aspect for decades. The presence of such gradients has enormous cost for the entire mankind, possibly even larger cost than keeping science for males only for centuries. This is one of the items in the category what we do not know that we don't know. It is highly likely that we have lost hundreds of discoveries and millions of items of progress simply by not fully involving the potential of brains in so-called less developed countries. The funding models of science for these countries are essentially a continuation of good old colonial attitude, focusing on short-term gain by providing minimum support and offering the best brains an option to move to some Western research centers. This process is fundamentally counterproductive because of many aspects. Part of them are deeply hidden. Some of these deeply hidden aspects have been highlighted in recent years. Intriguingly, the key input comes from metrics. For several decades, the total research output measured, for example, in peer-reviewed publications has doubled every 9 years. This is a much slower pace than the Moore's law for capacity of processors, but still amazingly rapid. However, at the same time, the proportion of scientific breakthroughs in this avalanche of results has greatly decreased, roughly about 10 times, and in all disciplines. It is of course debatable how to identify a breakthrough or a genuine discovery. There are still some more or less reliable indicators of such publications in terms of time evolution of citation metrics. Two categories can be singled out. First, publications that create a new big picture from pieces of a puzzle so that there is no need to refer to any previous study. And second, publications that correct earlier shortages and offer a radically different solution. And this analysis reveals a highly interesting feature. The number of such publications, breakthroughs or genuine discoveries per year, has remained more or less constant. This conjecture is not only highly inconvenient or even alarming. It may have steep political and financial consequences. The taxpayer asks, why I should pay for massively widening science when real benefit is produced by a few? This is a completely valid question, and we scientists must provide a convincing answer. Some attempts to answer this question have already failed. Fortunately, the taxpayer is not yet informed about these failures, but the scientific community has been told about that. First, remote work and virtual computation seem to provide a great, effective, and especially cost-effective solution for reaching discoveries in tight cooperation. This has been already proved as a dead end or even blunder. This kind of cooperation, virtual cooperation over Zoom or Teams, is a perfect way to complete projects, but ideas are created from face-to-face interaction. A hurting conjecture is that exclusively relying on remote connections has clear negative impact on reaching breakthroughs. Second, we are used to think that big teams are more effective to reach new horizons. This is wrong, not in each single case, but statistically. Small and flexible teams have better chances to reach discoveries. These two features may be the reasons why the normalized impact of Estonian science or science in Iceland is at the top of the world. It might well be that fragmented research landscape and mostly small teams are the key. There are more uncomfortable conjectures. Third, we have used to believe that very strong academic leaders create entire generations of excellent young scientists. Shortly, if you want to get Nobel Prize, start your career in the lab of a Nobel Prize winner. A dedicated analysis has shown that this is also wrong. The probability of surviving of young researcher on the academic landscape is clearly smaller for those who have started their career in a large team or who have had extremely productive mentors. These examples of counterintuitive but carefully validated features, not bugs, of that academic landscape are not only interesting things to know. They may lead to major modifications of science policy landscape. They may lead to extensive political pressure and controversial financial decisions that endanger our common future. Some of the related ramifications are evident in the recent science policy decisions of the United States and some other countries. We are therefore facing the times where many intuitively feasible ways forward that have served as excellent solutions in the past are becoming problematic and have either to be reconsidered or reshaped. On the one hand, the classic arguments about science as public good and foundation of better future do not necessarily work anymore. On the other hand, the words of Shimon Peres are still valid. Without science, we can't remove poverty and cannot reach peace. There is clearly no alternative to science in terms of making our future worth of living in it. But we have to reconsider how it works, how it is being funded, how it is being evaluated, how it is being communicated to society and stakeholders. And most importantly, how it should be shaped to reach solutions and breakthroughs, and not only mountains of publications. It is up to us whether we simply observe how the road to discoveries is changing, or we are committed to change the road to discoveries. Thank you.